Thank you for joining us, the National Catholic Educational Association, for this session, Planning Professional Development Opportunities Using Title II-A Funding. I am Laura MacDonald, Vice President of Content and Program Development here at NCEA. And there are just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. As you can see, this session is being recorded. If you have questions during this session, please submit them via the Q&A box. There will be time allotted to address your questions at the end. At the end, I will also share a link to the online survey and explain how to receive a certificate of completion for this webinar. Please join me for prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, we gather in gratitude for the educators dedicated to nurturing the minds and hearts of our students. Bless their efforts to grow in wisdom and skill so that they may inspire their students with patience, knowledge, and love. May this session enlighten us on how to secure the resources needed to empower teachers through professional development. Guide us with your wisdom as we work to uplift our educators and, in turn, improve the lives of our students. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And now I hand off to my colleague, Sister Dale McDonald, Vice President of Public Policy here at NCEA.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this webinar. As many of you know and probably have experienced, when dealing with the consultation process and the LEA, personnel who may not be aware of the guidance and regulations that pertain to private schools that differ from public school interpretations of the law, it can be a challenge. So what I'm going to do today is talking about what the law and the regulations expect of an applicant requesting equitable services using Title II-A funding. So we will look at the various pieces that are part of this whole applying for Title II funding. At the end of the presentation in the contact information, there is a link to the URL that has the Title II-A guidance that's part of Title VIII, and a link to the NCE website where you can obtain not only that, but also some of the regulations that deal with equitable services under the ESEA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. So I think it's important that you make yourself aware of and familiar with the guidance and the regulations when you begin the process of negotiating with the LEA, so that you are able to defend what you know, having read all of the materials, is your right to ask for. And in many cases, your counterpart at the LEA is not that well informed. So we're going to look at the purposes of Title II-A. We're going to look carefully at what professional development, how professional development is defined in Title II-A, how you can use it, how you go about planning for the funding, and then accessing the benefits and dealing with the whole funding process, and then a few tips for maximizing equitable services. So just a quick reminder about the process on how federal education programs work for those of us in private schools. We operate under two theories, the child benefit theory and the public trusteeship. So under child benefit, services provided to students and teachers, no financial aid is given to the school. In addition to the fact that it's against the law to actually accept funds, it's also problematic because to do so would make the school a recipient of federal funds and thus subject to Title IX and various other regulations that are imposed on public schools who accept federal funding. The services must address the needs of private school teachers and students and their teachers. This is really key. It's the needs of your students in your schools that drive the whole process, not the needs of the public school. They likely will differ from ours. So it's important that you focus on the needs, not the convenience of the LEA or your own convenience. Those are not options. And then public trusteeship. That's where the LEA is the fiduciary agent for the programs. Okay, we don't get the money, we get the services that they pay the service providers for. The important piece here is that services must be secular neutral and non-ideological. And when we've heard that since the beginning of time, but also supplemental. And that's an important piece that we sometimes forget. When we're talking about supplemental services, we mean additional goods, services, products, programs that are beyond what the school can afford in its professional development budget. Okay, so the school is expected to have some kind of a professional development budget. And then the requests go over and above that. Well, yes, this would be good, but it would be better if I could bring in this professional to do it rather than relying on the principal or some other teacher. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So the next so what we're looking at is this whole concept that continuous professional development is essential for educators to improve their teaching quality and student outcomes. So that we see here the various ways in which PD is described initially in the legislation. That what they're trying to do with this increase, and this is a $2 billion budget, is to increase the number of teachers, principals, and other school leaders who are effective in improving student academic achievement. And we know student academic achievement is more than just what scores they get. We're looking here at a holistic approach to what factors go into students being able to succeed. And they're focusing particularly on minority students, low-income students, to have greater access to effective teachers and educators who can help them meet the academic standards they need. The law interchanges words like school leaders and educational leaders. What we're also talking about here are any professional, which could include, say, guidance counselors or paraprofessionals. They are also able to be in service with some of these funds. And again, the resources must align with student academic needs. That's the driving force. How can they succeed? And I think we all know by now that public and private schools are supposed to participate equitably in professional development opportunities, differently but equitably. So this here is the actual definition of PD as the law requires. LEA may provide high quality, personalized professional development that is evidence-based for teachers. The evidence-based for teachers is as far as that's possible. For the most part, if you're using some activity services programs that have had a track record of working, that's sufficient. Excuse me. So what we're looking at then is that the focus is on improving student learning and achievement. The professional development activities that you choose are to be part of the strategies for providing educators with knowledge and skills necessary to enable children to succeed. And so you have to show some correlation there with what you're looking for. And sustained, which means they're not one alone, one day, short term. They're intensive, meaning it builds in complexity as you go through these processes. It's collaborative, working with more than just yourself, and it's job embedded, and that's an important piece there too. What you're doing has to be related to the actual job what you're requesting, to the actual job you're doing, so that if you're a fourth grade math teacher, the content areas should be math. I mean, there may be a great workshop that some of your colleagues are going to on teaching Shakespeare in the 8th grade, and you'd love to, but if you're not teaching Shakespeare in the 8th grade, you can't do that. In high school, the same way. You have to have it be job embedded. It has to be data driven, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and classroom focused. So it's, what are you going to learn? how are you going to use it in the classroom? So again, this is just a quick development piece that I think I lost something here. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So as a general overall, the programs have to be designed to meet the learning needs. And I'll keep saying that because this is what they're looking for, supporting the learning need, supported by data from needs assessment. So this here is where you really need to be able to focus on what the needs tell you you need to do to improve your ability to meet those needs. So for most of what we see here, what you can use the funding for, core academic subjects, integrating technology, and that's across a whole wide variety. I mean, this law was written before AI even became, a concept that anyone was familiar with. STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We usually refer to them as STREAM, science, technology, religion, arts, engineering, and math. We can't do the religion part here, but arts can also be part of what you're looking for. Effective instructional strategies, methods, and skills. Like, how do you actually perform certain tasks with the students that will help them improve? And then teaching and addressing the needs of the students, say with different learning styles. So where you may need to take some kind of a workshop about differentiated instruction, things of that sort. And then the important piece, that last bullet point, methods of improving student behavior and identifying early interventions. We certainly, are aware of improper behavior, disruptive behavior on the learning environment. And so how do you recognize that, and how do you begin to move students beyond what conflicts they may personally have? In addition to what you may gain here, students, if they qualify for Title I, could also be eligible for actual guidance services under Title I. Okay, so now, as I have said several times before, data is what you have to demonstrate that these are needs, these are actual needs, and this is what you need to do. So the important thing is that you might have to be able to demonstrate to the person who is approving your request for the PD services that this is an actual need. So what kind of data do we have to go through? So the types of data you might want to consider when you're looking at your needs are demographic. What is the student's background, history, socioeconomic status, all of that. Perceptions. What is it you see as the teacher? What do parents tell you? He can't do his homework. He can't sit still to do this, whatever. Student learning methods. Are they auditory learners? Are they visual learners? And then school processes. That's how the school functions. I'll do something about that the next slide. So from the day, so we're looking at actual data, raw facts, and you get that from test scores, from surveys. You look at attendance records or classroom observations. What do you draw from that? And that's important because that becomes, your body of evidence, which is actually just an extension of the data that have been analyzed, interpreted, or used to support a claim or a conclusion rather, or a decision. So when you look at all of that data, what do you do with it? The whole focus is going beyond, the test scores came back, we did okay as a class, and then it goes in the file. This is actually taking test scores or what other information you get and actually look at them and analyze them to see what kind of a process must you need to address certain needs. So again, this is, focusing again on students' data that, when you look at the test results, do they show the strengths and the weaknesses of the child? What data can you get from the annual assessments? How thorough are they? Do you use the kind of comprehensive report, or pay for, I guess, is part of the problem, the kind of comprehensive report that gives you an item by item, so that you're knowing whether or not it is reading fluency, it's recognition, whatever, that the child needs more help in. So, how do you use the data that you get from all of these different ways of looking at information to decide what are the needs that most need to be addressed? And can't address them all, certainly. You have to prioritize the needs, but um, you have something to work with. It's actually concrete. When you're talking about school processes data, that's, the information about how the school actually operates. One of the teaching methods and classroom practices that you use to deliver education. How do you operate? There are various different methods of how you function as teacher in a classroom and how you expect the children to interact. What are the curriculum choices that you're using? How frequent do you have assessments, and what kind of assessments are used? Classroom management techniques, teacher collaboration practices. Do you work with the other fourth grade teacher, with the other pre-K teacher, with with a second grade teacher, on ways in which together you may be able to help one another and then, help the students. So, I think what's really something we need to, keep in mind is that, regularly collecting data, gives the schools a way, a time to monitor and make continuous improvement. Again, as teachers, our goal is continuous improvement for student academic outcomes. Um, so having, a collection of data that you can actually learn something from is, really important in making use of what services might be available. And so helps you then to, develop a PD plan for yourself that has a variety of instructional strategies maybe, and creative and effective ways to use these strategies and to develop ways in which to collaborate with other teachers. That's an important piece. If you remember back a couple of slides, the PD is supposed to be collaborative. So when you're going to create a professional development plan, the important thing is setting a goal. What clearly defined, measurable, achievable, smart, the regular, SMART goals that are aligned with the individual needs and the school objectives. Again, I mentioned earlier, there should be annually some kind of a school professional development plan. As a school community, what are we focusing on this year? And we look across the spectrum, what are the various things in which we see similarities from class to class? What might that be a focus? For a lot of schools, the last year or two, they're beginning to look at, what's the impact of AI and how is that something that is impacting not only, student learning behaviors, but our own methodology of teaching, preparation for teaching, and so on. So that it's important going through this, that we have content-focused learning, so that we select activities that relate to the curriculum that we're using, the teaching standards that we're using, and the goals we set for ourselves. So in addition to having a plan that looks at, various individual pieces, what we're looking at is a whole overarching kind of a sense of what, what would a good plan look like? So that's, first and foremost, I think we all need to engage in some kind of a self-assessment. What am I doing? How am I doing? Do I simply pull out the plan book from last year and, hope it works this year with these kids? Or am I actually looking at what worked last year? What didn't? How do I know that? So that, in developing your plan, you want self-assessment, clear goals, active learning opportunities for yourself that you can grow personally and then integrate that kind of growth into the classroom. Again, collaboration with peers and coachings and professional development communities are all available activities under Title II-A and should be pursued. Even for short term, having the teachers undergo some coaching for maybe 2-3 months, depending on what, of course, is in the budget. But how are you going? And part of it, so great, I'm going to all these things. How am I going to align this with actually what I do in the classroom? And there should be a plan for that. It's not something that just, is intuitive. You need to plan it, but then you also need to be able to clearly state it. So when you go for a set consultation process, what you're looking at is, having to make a request, and it can be as simple as what's here. This is very simple, basic, but you state the student need. Improve reading for comprehension. Well, how do you know that? You've done reading assessments, you've done classroom observations, etc., to know whether or not that's a need. So what does the teacher need? Instructional strategies for teaching reading in the content areas for at-risk students, say. Well, where are you going to get that? It may be a workshop you see somewhere, or it may be like a local university course. You are, taking a course at a college for credit or non-credit. You have to negotiate that with the district, but that's an available expense that you can use Title II to pay for. And allowable, I shouldn't say about allowable. So, it can be as simple as this. And the thing that's hard to predict is, what is it that the LEA is going to ask you for? I mean, they can ask for something as simple. If you can give them information like this, that should be sufficient. They can't ask you to do, burdensome paperwork. You may need to, do a little more than this if they want to know, well, how did you come? You don't necessarily need to provide all the results, but have the backup that if they actually demand something, you can say, well, the reading scores for grade 4 were this, and, they had been at this, or, we're aiming for it to be at this. So they can ask you, for what is required by the law, which is simply coming to the ability to demonstrate why this is a need and what you need to take care of it. So they can ask you to do what the law requires, but not over and above that. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. You have to be prepared to defend what you're asking for, but not laboriously so. So then the allocation for funding, I think this is a simple piece that we should all, be aware of, that Title II-A funding under ESEA is calculated on the basis of the whole allocation. When it was No Child Left Behind, we could only share in the part that the district decided to use for professional development, which could have been 0%, could have been 10%. Now the district gets its money. It says, okay, to operate both public and private school programs, we need to take 7% of the total, and we'll keep that to administer the program. Then the rest gets split, and it's split proportionally, so that you count all the students in the district. There are 2,000 students in the district. 500 of them are private school. The other 1,500 are public school, and therefore the ratio of public to private is what determines their percentage of the pot. And then you multiply, the per pupil, you get derived from that, you derive the per pupil PPA, the per pupil allocation. That is the funding that's available for each private school child in the district. It's not actually names, like bank account for the kids, but it's, you're eligible to negotiate, consult for that amount of funding for your teachers. The important piece is that the number that gets counted are the number who actually say they want to participate in the program. So you need to be sure that when you get the intent to participate form, or when you have to call the district and say, in May, I didn't get an intent to participate form, and I want to indicate the programs I wish to participate in. So basically, the equitable services means that you have an equitable PPA. That's one of the major determinants of whether or not you are able to have equitable services demonstrated. It's important that you pay attention to, again, the directives. There are specific things for private schools that are not necessarily operational in the district, but that doesn't mean it's not applicable for us, like travel, for instance. Check out the sections in the Title II-A guidance about permissible travel expenditures. Again, they will only pay for the portion that is secular, neutral, and non-ideological. Okay, so consultation, excuse me. The goal of consultation is to reach agreement. Okay, that's not defined. What does agreement mean? In the end, the LEA does have the final say, but if you feel, and you look at the list of consultation topics, if you feel that they did not listen to your request, they didn't give due consideration, then you can file a formal complaint. The list of required consultations are in the document that gives all the guidance directives. And during the consultation process, the district has to tell you what is the amount of funding they receive for the program, what is the proportional share, how did they come to that? So they have to tell you there was this many dollars, this many kids, this percentage was private schools, and then divided by the percentage divided by all the number gives you your PPA. So the LEA may require an applicant to provide evidence that PD meets the definition of professional development. Okay, so we went through that earlier in the slides here. Again, it's how are you meeting the child's needs for what you request, not how is it going to benefit you personally for you. So even though it's a great workshop, I'd like to go to it. I'm interested in that topic. If it's not job embedded what you're teaching, that won't fly. Is it necessary, reasonable and necessary? Again, that's where they will look at the dollar amount being requested, so that if you're trying to go to a great workshop on AI and it's being done in February in Massachusetts, and it's being done in March in Hawaii or Florida, and you live somewhere near Massachusetts, Hawaii and Florida are not considered justifiable. So you got to use your common sense. And then PD is supplemental and does not supplant PD that would have otherwise been provided. So they can say to you, well, what can't you do this? And you say, well, we could, but the quality of the program will be more enhanced if we did this, this, and this. So, those are simple kinds of things that you need to be aware of. And the other is, always make sure you know what the guidance and regulations tell you. You're able to convey that to the district, and if possible, bring a copy of what the documents say, so that the person is now the fourth one in that office who has never seen the paperwork that was sent in 2016, doesn't have a clue what you're talking about. You show them this paper, show them the guidance has the actual Department of Education seal on it. So it gives them a sense of if they don't want to go this way, when you appeal it to the Department of Ed, this is what the district will be told. So for most of them, they want to clean it up before they have to get involved with the LEA, with the LEA get involved with the state or with the feds. So, tips for successful implementation is really, developing a working relationship with the LEA personnel. These are the people you have to work with. They are the fiduciary agents. You can disagree with them, but you do so in a, respectful way that doesn't jeopardize future. And the guidance document will tell you clearly, this is what consultation requires them to do. And so if you are not happy with the way they're responding, and you can show them that they have to tell you this or do this, it goes a long way. Make sure the LE knows, again, that's the intent to participate. Also, there are many federal programs to the state and to the LEAs that are grant processes that the district will go through. They are supposed to, if they're anything under ESCA, they're supposed to include you. So it's really important to ask, in addition to, I want to participate in Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. Are you applying for any other grants that are available to us? We'd like to participate. Know the specifics. I can't say that often enough, so in addition to knowing what the district's supposed to do, know what your obligations are. What do you need to provide or prepare? If you have to have an actual attendance count, you have it. If you have to have a poverty count, you have it. So that when you're at the meeting, you can get most of the business done as you go from meeting to meeting. And then the important thing is to know who the ombudsman is and how to contact that person. The ombudsman in each state is the first line of defense. So that if you run into a difficulty, talk to the ombudsman about it. And the ombudsman is expected to make sure that the program is fairly and equitably administered and to address, they're not your advocate. They're an advocate for the law and its operation in the program. And then know how to initiate a formal complaint and use it. That's also in the guidance, so that if you are not having a good relationship with the district for whatever reason, and you're not able to negotiate for the programs that would be important for your kids, then it's important to use the final resort, which is a formal complaint. And sometimes even telling the district, I will have to initiate a formal complaint because you are not, and you tell them what the guidance says they're supposed to do and what they don't do. And oftentimes they say, well, let's go back and look at that. So that's, one of the ways in which it's important to know you have a right to do that. Very often, we say we've been too nice too long, and the district may get into some entrenched bad habits that need to be challenged. Will you challenge them? So just a, concise conclusion, takeaway that Title II offers value support for professional development, especially in private schools where we don't get a lot of the other things in funding resources that public schools get. So there are major dollars. I said it's $2 billion program, billion as in boy, that our students are entitled to share in that, and our teachers. It's the students' parents' money, tax money. It's the teachers' tax money that funds these programs. And then, effective planning, aligning with student and educator needs maximizes the impact of PD and maximizes your opportunity to actually get the services from the LEA that you need to be able to address student needs. And then, what do you do to integrate what you learn into the daily life of the classroom? And then what do you learn from that so that going forward, you're able to provide services that would actually work in the classroom? So I think the next step is then to start developing a comprehensive plan based on your school and your individual educator needs. Again, the educator needs are not just principals, teachers, they are other professional staff and paraprofessionals. So I know that was a quick run through, and I'd be happy now to respond to any questions we have, Laura, in the Q&As.
Yes, I'm looking at the box now, and Do we have any questions? Feel free to add those to the Q&A box there. And we will have Sister Dale answer them. I guess you did such a great job, Sister Dale, that nobody has any questions. I know that
Everybody left.
no, they're all here still. You know, you always share a lot of information, and so just a reminder that this will be available on demand. And one thing I like to do when it comes to title funding is rewatch and take notes, and sometimes stop and think about things. And I know that once you do that, you might have more questions, and Sister Dale is always available at the email she shared to answer questions. We do have someone with a hand up. Victoria, can you put your question in the Q&A box by clicking on that there? Make sure that's working for you. Looks like Victoria has a question. Let's see. Not yet, but let me go ahead and run through information for the end so we can provide people with the survey information, and we will keep our eye on that chat box just in case it comes up. So available to you now is the survey. Thank you for attending today's session, and much gratitude to Sister Dale for all the information. We wish you the best on developing a comprehensive professional development plan, and we hope you find success in applying these insights. I've shared the link. Please feel free to complete that survey. And also, if you're interested in a certificate of attendance, please include your email address and name at the end of the survey, and one will be provided in an automated email. So check your spam just in case.
Okay.
All right, we do have questions
I
now.
do see Victoria's question. Does it make any difference if a teacher is not certified to be able to access funds from Title II-A? No. It makes no difference because our teachers are not expected to be certified according to the law. It's not a requirement. So everyone has an equitable teachers, paraprofessionals, and so on. Again, that's one of the differences with the public schools. And then Nikki says, is there a basic idea of what Title IV funds can be used for? Yes. And it's interesting because you can use Title II in combination with Title IV. Title IV, which deals with well-rounded education, which is actually, when the law was written, everything that everybody in the Senate and House thought would be important, you know, so you go from art and music and you know, having the Constitution celebrated every September, I think it's 13th, et cetera. Actually, somewhere in the archives, I did do a workshop on webinar on Title IV. But we're looking there for, you know, really a well-rounded education, more than just, you know, trying to pass the reading and math scores. You're looking at technology, and in that Title IV, you're looking at how to use technology effectively in working with students, not just on hardware, software. Very little of the money is for hardware, software. It's for how do you effectively use this and integrating it into, you know, how do you interpret social media, to say in the high school class and history? How do you interpret various direct primary sources that you would access online, et cetera? What sources do you use? And then there's also what used to be the old Title IV, the health and safety. There's a lot in there that would be used for a variety of things. And I would say, Laura, maybe we can someplace have, I'm sure the Title IV is in the archive. The webinar I did last year sometime.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I answered the other one. The other person was just wondering about, this is all available if you go to PD and under our on demand, in about 24 hours, you'll be able to find this content.
Yes, this program will be about 24 hours, she said, available under.
Yeah.
Lori says, I'd love any information about other programs as well. But I don't share, for example, proportionate share. Oh, okay. That's how you determine, okay. So for Title 2, 3, 4, the eligible people to participate are any of the schools that are in the district that gets the money. All right, Title I is all deals with the district in which the child lives. All of the other programs, 2, 3, and 4, are the district in which the private school is located. Regardless of where the child lives, the child can be going to school in New York and lives in Jersey, or live in Vermont and, go to school in Vermont and lives in Canada. It doesn't matter. The simple logic, and they actually in the guidance, it shows you exactly the examples of how to do this. But basically, you look at the pot of money the district gets. And so they get $3 million. And you look at, they say, and I need 10% of that to administer this program for everyone. Then you look at how many kids are actually located in the district. So between the public school that might have 2 million, the private schools may have 500,000. And that's all private schools. This is not done school by school. It's all private schools. And then they look at the proportionate share. So if private schools are 10% of the district, then 10% of the funding is set aside to serve private schools. If private schools are 4%, 4% is set aside. So 4% of the money, let's say, I forget what numbers I used earlier, let's say 4% of the money would be $500,000. And there are 1,000 private school kids in the district. So that means the pre-PA is $1,000 each. All right, so that's wrong math. I forget what I said. I'm sorry, I'm talking in my head. But anyhow, so you take the number. So we set aside $500,000 for the private school kids, and then you divide that by the number of private school kids, and that will give you the PPA. So that's, what you're able to request from up to that amount from the district. Then you come to like February, March, and you go back to the district and you say, have all the Title II funds been used? I would like to use any of the remaining funds that might be available. And then you negotiate for additional services if there are funds for that. So I hope that helps. Anything
All
else?
right.
No.
I think that's it. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much. We had some great questions today. Thank you very much. And everybody, Lori says thanks. You are welcome, Lori. Everyone have a good day.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.